February 22nd, 2021, after almost 4 years of public silence and 8 years since our last album, electronic trailblazers and professional beat boopers Daft Punk posted this. An 8-minute explosive farewell, reusing film footage of theirs to signify the end of a career that spanned over 3 decades and won them both commercial and critical acclaim. To imagine the world of popular music during the 90s and 2010s being the same without Daft Punk would be a fool's errand. What their careers meant to the popularity of dance music and, in conjunction with genres like hip hop, sampling, can never be understated. Equally as important was their image is instantly recognisable as Mario or Mickey Mouse. Despite their names being readily available on the internet, the air of mystery and magic Daft Punk carried never lost its pungency. I'm not going to say their names aloud in this video. Is that to keep that mystique alive, or is it because I'll butcher their pronunciation? I'll leave that up to you. But almost definitely the latter. With that out of the way, hello and welcome, I'm Liam the Music Reviewer, and welcome to Rank, the series where worst means weakest and best means best. And today we're going to be talking at length about the legendary Daft Punk. Let's log in. This might take a wee minute. A legendary artist appearing in a film or show is exciting enough on its own, but said artist's soundtrack in said movie or show is a different kettle of fish altogether. The list is endless, with notable artists like Trent Reznor having a hand in more film scores than he has Nine Inch Nails records. So when it was announced that Daft Punk would be overseeing the music side of things for a Tron sequel made 28 years after the original, you'd be forgiven for letting your expectations get set pretty skyscraper high. After all, as easy as it would be to say that they got the gig because some out-of-touch board member went, "Get the robot guys to do the flashy weird film we're making for some reason," Daft Punk and the art of film have been pretty inseparable since the get-go. So for them to be handed the keys to this Tron bike makes a lot of sense. Now, I haven't seen this film since it came out, and at the time of recording, the copyright for Liam the Film Reviewer has not came through, but while I can't give my thoughts on the movie, I can definitely give my thoughts on the soundtrack, and there's a good wee run on here starting from End of Line, kind of anthemic cuts that would perfectly soundtrack a Neon Frisbee fight to the death. When you've got moodier pieces, it wouldn't be too out of place in The Social Network. In addition to the more energetic slices of electro house that would be the perfect companion for some Hotline Miami slaughtering, it's difficult to resist Tron Legacy's pull. However, my biggest gripe comes with the cinematic production, mostly seen at the beginning of the record, that didn't start, but most definitely was part of the movement in the 2010s towards monotonous one-note scores in the wake of Marvel and Inception. Not horrible, but just a little bit too safe for my taste. Basically, when Daft Punk are being Daft Punk, it's great. Tron Legacy soundtrack is great, but when they're working at the behest of our Disney overlords, it really lacks an identity. And when we're talking about Daft Punk, a duo who are so memorable and recognisable both for their music and their aesthetic, that just seems like such a cardinal sin to be committing. A solid soundtrack, no doubt about it, but it wasn't enough to scratch that Daft Punk itch that had been spreading since their last full-length album that came out 5 years prior. Speaking of which... Now, a complaint that I often see lobbied at Daft Punk is that their music is too repetitive, and I think when it comes to an album that seems to get kicked in the shins with that complaint, it's very often human after all. Mixed reception from critics and even more sour reaction from internet communities, and that's without mentioning the album's 6-week production time and the fact that when leaked months prior to its release, people thought it was a fake. All of this must mean that this was just a huge misfire and misstep for Daft Punk, an F in a record full of A's. No, but it's actually good. In the arms of the angel. Now don't get me wrong, it's not that I don't get some of the complaints. As much as I like Robot Rock, does it fail to build on its promising beginning? Sort of, though it and the punk tendencies sprinkled throughout Human After All really help to add to the jaded lyricism that's inherent to this record's identity. Now, whether said lyrics really add or take away from the enjoyment is another conversation entirely. At their best, they offer some level of interest, but rarely are they what you're paying attention to, and can sometimes be just paper thin. And I need to address the Electro House elephant in the room technology, which seems to really bear the brunt of the animosity like thrown at Human After All, and I just don't get it. I think it's a great tune, and honestly the only bit that I don't really like is near the end where it starts to falter. Some of the different bits of dialogue that are thrown about just seem to sort of like kind of clash with each other in a way that kind of reminds me of when you're on the street and you're trying to get past a stranger and you both keep like mirroring each other. That's the only way I can really describe that. And other than that, it's a pretty Morge song that blossoms in a really infatuating way, eventually leaking in wonderfully into the closer Emotion. I'm a fan, sue me. It also feels odd to overlook this album as just Daft Punk being Daft Punk but worse, when so many experiments end up being pretty fruitful, like the Bit Crush Steam Machine, which, with its gaspy, unsettling delivery of the word machine, feels closer to a Nine Inch Nails song that does a duo who gave us One More Time and Get Lucky. Brainwasher 2 fits this more confrontational and fearful tone, closer to the mood of their avant-garde 2006 film, which sees them trying to become Human After All.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Another favourite of mine is Make Love, almost a predecessor to a future collaboration the duo would produce, as it's hard not to make this out as Daft Punk's attempt at a Minimalist Strokes tune. Daft Punk went on to say that not elaborating on Human After All in any sort of interviews at the time was the worst decision that they've ever made. And while I do get the regret, because imagine how attitudes may have changed had some further context been given, I think it only makes sense that such a revolutionary act would put out a record this divisive. As far as I'm concerned, while it may be their weakest mainline album, it's the furthest thing from a bad record. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go return to my grave. So if you haven't wasted an ungodly amount of time on TikTok like me, then you might not know about this video where a user argued the Star Wars film titles were all wrong, saying The Force Awakens should actually be The Empire Strikes Back because The First Order, The Empire 2.0, Revenge of the Sith should be Attack of the Clones because of Order 66, so on and so forth. I bring this up because the name Human After All I think would much better describe and fit the next album we're going to talk about, though the name it got was still pretty cool. 8 years after the release of Human After All, Daft Punk dropped their latest and, unknown at the time, their last album, which really does stand out in their discography for a multitude of reasons. First and most obvious is that this record sounds unlike anything the duo would put out, acting as more of a love letter to the funk and disco that they built their career on. With that in mind, it may very well be their most conceptual record, with a cut like Giorgio by Marauder being what I can imagine TED Talks would be like if they allowed their speakers to create 9-minute long synth-heavy odysseys to close out their speeches. As opposed to the rebellious overtones about tech on Human After All, Random Access Memories is so much more about wants and needs, emotions and feelings, contact and touch, and it does all of this while utilising synthetic instrumentation that just ties into Daft Punk's love of funk and disco. There are a bunch of highlights I could talk at length about, but how about I bring up a track I teased at earlier on, Instant Crush, a song that goes to show that sometimes the best Strokes song ain't even a Strokes song. Then there's Give Life Back to Music, another goodie that kicks the album off and sets the impression that the duo are about to go disco stew on you. If I have any complaints, maybe it's a song like Lose Yourself to Dance. Kinda just sticks out as being weak by comparison, not a bad song per se, but when everything else is so good, it does kinda stick out like a sore thumb. I guess my overplay of Get Lucky may play some factor into my ranking of Random Access Memories, though I must say that the album version does a wonderful job with its build up, so the magic hasn't worn off, even if the replay value may have. I'm not gonna say it. I'm not gonna say it's the sound of summer. I'm not gonna say it. If there's something I don't have a complaint about though, it's the closer. Daft Punk perfect the finale. Contact doesn't so much feel like the last track as it does a mission, packing the sonic blast of a rocket, which is fitting considering the NASA sample. Random Access Memories doesn't go out with a bang, rather it explodes like a nuclear blast, every barrier being disintegrated as Daft Punk set off on a journey which, while it may not have led to anything, for the years before their breakup announcement was enough to fill you with excitement just by thinking about it. It's no surprise hearing that the studio speakers blew out when Daft Punk initially tested out these closing sounds. It's quite a brash rock star approach, and it's just pretty ironic considering that this is Daft Punk's most delicate, touching album ever. While that rocket ship launch eventually went nowhere, as far as swan songs go, Random Access Memories is a damn fine way to bow out, but now that we've only got 2 more albums to discuss, we need a robotic drum roll. On your debut record, you'd be forgiven for playing it safe, maybe trying to find your feet, see what works, but Daft Punk don't take long to show that on Homework, this is just more than a collection of well put together songs. And I'm not just talking sonically either, though the opener Daft and Direct sounds like a microchip from a water damaged phone ascending to the great tech beyond. No small feat, especially for the standards of the 1990s. Album highlight Revolution 909 helped Daft Punk join a pantheon of musicians like DJ Sprinkles and ensuring house music's rebellious streak remained intact. The French duo aiming their sights on government censorship of the genre and accompanying raves. And I really love the mixing on here, shifting from being inside the party itself to the streets and nearby houses, the music perforating the walls. Usually I'd be a cranky old man, but in this situation I'm not gonna be. In fact, I'm gonna imagine they're my pals. Maybe I'll even join in.
Sorry, it's a private party. No bother.
It's an absolute racket, and I'm sure I could smell hash and all.
It's not often you witness this kind of creativity so early on, but from what I've mentioned so far, in addition to hiring visionaries like Spike Jonze to direct the music videos, Daft Punk had established a mantra right out the gate. All of this helps to elevate Homework in a really cool way, but it's just the sheer hypnotism that's on display that makes the album feel like it's running for way too short a runtime, even though it's over an hour long. Of course, I can't possibly bring up this album without talking about Around the World. Or can I? Nah, I'll do it anyway. It's the most popular song on this album, one of the most well-known songs from Daft Punk, and on paper it really has no right to be as enjoyable or fun as it is for the duration. You'd assume 3 words being repeated endlessly for 7 minutes should be used as some sort of interrogation technique, but unless your intent is to kidnap people and witness them go into a dopamine-inducing trance, you're best looking elsewhere. The pair's approach here is to just eat this metaphorical cake bit by bit throughout the whole thing. It's a pretty gluttonous approach that kind of stands out compared to the approach on later records where it feels like they'd kind of like maybe take like a slice or two before seeing what the rest of the buffet has to offer. I should stress though that this isn't like a criticism or anything like that, more just like an observation that will kind of tip the scales in determining whether or not this is your favourite Daft Punk album. It's so creative and fun right down to its final seconds in the form of Funk Ad, which might just be defunct played backwards, but it's so ingenious. It just shows that Daft Punk viewed their songs from all different perspectives and dimensions. As mentioned earlier, you get those who will complain that it's too repetitive, which to me sounds like...
Randall, there is a cow outside.
There's a cow farm. You're gonna find cows outside.
For me though, it's pretty damn good, but there's another album that builds on these fascinating, fantastic foundations and creates something even more just otherworldly, something that is Daft Punk's most interesting release to date and, in my opinion, their best album.
One more time.
If calling something timeless is a cliche, then you can call me that trope in movies where somebody goes, English please, to a nerd, because Discovery is timeless. If it was released nowadays, it would not show its age even a day. It is aged just as well as your dad. Tell him congrats, that fitness regime is doing wonders for him. No matter how many times I return to Discovery, despite how ingrained some of these songs are into popular culture and are therefore played to death, I am in complete and utter disbelief as to how good this album sounds every time I return to it. I was there for that harder, better, faster, stronger dance trend. I saw that performed at talent shows. I've seen it played time and time and time again in popular culture. I've heard it sampled. It's still really good. I'm just never not amazed at how well this Lego building exercise just pays off. It is just a treat. If Led Zeppelin were trying to build a stairway to heaven, then Aerodynamic feels like a speedway there instead. The constant ascension packing in the velocity of 1,000 Mario Kart golden mushrooms. Then we've got Digital Love, which feels like such an oxymoron. How is that voice trying to emulate that of a robot sound so human, so sincere and so genuine in its desire for love? How can that MIDI riff, so tiny in stature, sound as triumphant as a herd of horses? God knows, but at this point I don't want to find out why. Is this blissful ignorance to how it all works? It's a feeling I have no desire to tamper with. There's such a vibrancy to this record that it shouldn't come as a surprise that a film companion exists to Discovery called Interstellar 5555. I've probably already used clips of it so far, and while I am Liam the music reviewer, not Liam the film reviewer, yet, it captures the vibe perfectly and only just adds to the iconic lineage of Daft Punk. Does nostalgia factor into my enjoyment? I mean, you're a liar if you say fond memories don't have an impact on your experience with an album, and while Discovery would be top dog even without it, hearing One More Time and having memories flood back of watching Toonami, playing about with my purple Game Boy Advance, just still act as a catalyst for happiness no matter how many times I've heard it. It's a perfect album, and that's why it's the best Daft. Oh, there's been a mistake. There's been cut the cameras. Super Mario Galaxy, Ratatouille, Shrek the Third. This was a packed year, but when it comes to what defined 2007, it couldn't be anything else. I really don't want to sound hyperbolic here, but sometimes, even if I'm just thinking about Alive 2007, it amazes me that it even exists. The number of times I've imagined playing these tracks at a DJ set aren't zero. The way that all these songs mash up so perfectly, they're made decades apart from each other, or like years and years apart from each other, and it just makes me think that Daft Punk must have been like masters of time and space to have that foresight. It's like giving Neil CC Riga the Infinity Gauntlet. As much as I think this is the best Daft Punk album, if I was listening to their discography for the first time, I would certainly leave this till second last before Random Access Memories, because anyone who has spent enough time with Alive 2007 will tell you how much it recontextualises their catalogue of music. For example, I can't listen to Steam Machine without both expecting it to segue into Around the World, as well as a from the audience. Speaking of Human After All, tracks from that album were taken and repurposed, given a second chance at love, and boy did they receive that adoration, especially on the opener and the closer. It just bookends Alive 2007 with redemption. I could spend all day going on about all my favourite mixes and matches, so I'll try to keep it to a select few. One More Time / Aerodynamic opens with those iconic bell tolls, only to be broken up by the even more iconic sample work of One More Time. It's like if your phone went off at a funeral and instead of getting annoyed, everyone just decided to start partying. And when those aerodynamic guitars kick in at the end, little Granny Agnes going full Jimi Hendrix on top of the casket, I think it might be enough to revive the deceased in question. By the way, if I ever die, which if that warlock was telling the truth shouldn't happen, but if it does, let that exact scenario play out. And if I had to choose just one more, the penultimate trinity of superheroes, Human After All, rock and roll, just one of the most goosebump-inducing tracks I've ever heard. Superheroes has turned to a marching anthem that slowly creeps up in volume before the distortion of rock and roll and face-melting guitars from Human After All turn this into a distilled beverage that, if consumed, has a 50-50 chance of filling you with the energy to run multiple marathons, or it'll give you a heart attack. Your pick. when that robot voice finishes this performance with an uttering of Human After All, followed by all that applause. Absolutely beautiful. Those raves that I talked about before that the French government were trying to squash and censor and whatnot have absorbed all the gamma rays in their radius to become the kaiju that is Alive 2007, a stomping force to be reckoned with, though it is more concerned with getting you grooving than setting you alight with its atomic blue breath. I might need a giant stepladder and a giant medal to award it, but Alive 2007, you may have set the city on fire, but you are the best Daft Punk album. Also, I didn't want to give Alive 1997 its own section to keep this whole curveball surprise a secret, but it would be somewhere between Tron Legacy and Human After All, in case you're wondering. And there we have it, every Daft Punk album ranked. Please let me know your ranking, what you thought of my ranking, and what you had for lunch in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then I'd appreciate it if you gave it a wee like, and if you liked this content, and there's plenty more of it on my channel, so subscribe, I'd like that a lot. And thank you to all my beautiful patrons whose names are on screen just now. As little as £1 per month will get you early access to every video I put out, so link to that is in the description down below. And again, I would very much appreciate any support you can give me, monetary or thumbs wise. I've missed doing these ranked videos, and trust me, there'll be more to come in 2021, so again, if you like this, subscribe. But in the meantime, take care, stay safe, stay hydrated, and Daft Punk, gonna miss you, but thank you so much for all the great music that you've put out. It's changed my life and plenty of others. Sound of the summer. It's the sound of the summer. It's the sound of the summer. Sound of the summer. Sound of the summer.
Like the legend of the phoenix.